Welcome to the Sleep Dives channel. All right, let's dive back into James Clear's workbook for atomic habits. We're going to tackle a huge idea, the law of least effort. We'll look at why our brains are basically hardwired for the easy route, how to use that to our advantage with something called the 2-minute rule, and then we'll flip it all on its head and learn how to make our bad habits as difficult as humanly possible. Let's get into it.
So let's just start with a question that, we can all relate to. It's the end of a long day. Why does scrolling on the sofa feel so much better than heading to the gym? Why do we always, almost without thinking, just reach for the most convenient option? Well, it turns out it's not a moral failing, and it's not a lack of willpower. It's actually a core feature of how we're built. And this slide right here, this is the core concept, the law of least effort. James Clear explains that our brains are these incredible efficiency machines. They are programmed, literally hardwired, to conserve energy. You gotta remember, this is an ancient survival instinct from a time when calories were super scarce. So when you're faced with two choices, you are biologically designed to pick the one that takes less effort. This isn't laziness, not at all. It's survival. The real trick is to start designing our lives with this law instead of constantly fighting against it. Okay, so we know our brains seek out convenience. How in the world do we use that to our advantage? Well, this brings us to our very first principle, designing for ease. It's a really common mistake to think we just need more motivation, more grit. But the real solution, Clear argues, is to just reduce the friction between you and the good habits you want to build. The strategy is so simple, but it is so powerful. Instead of trying to make a hard thing seem more appealing, you just make the good thing the easiest thing to do. You're basically creating a life where the path of least resistance leads you straight to your goals. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, if the gym is literally on your way home from work, the friction to go is almost zero. If you've already got healthy meals prepped in the fridge, ordering takeout is suddenly the harder option. Laying out your jogging clothes the night before, that removes that whole morning debate you have with yourself. Each of these little actions primes your environment, making the good habit the obvious, easy choice. Reducing friction is a great first step for sure. But what about those habits that just feel too big to even start? You know the ones. This is where the absolute genius of the 2-minute rule comes into play. It's designed to beat that feeling of being completely overwhelmed. The rule couldn't be simpler. Any new habit you start should take less than 2 minutes. Now, the point isn't to achieve your ultimate goal in those 2 minutes. Not at all. The entire point is to master the art of just showing up. See, we often get so fixated on the finish line that we forget that the single most important step is just getting started. This rule is all about that start. Clear calls this a gateway habit, and it's the perfect name for it. Your goal isn't to run 3 miles. Nope. Your goal is simply to put on your running shoes. That's it. It takes less than 2 minutes, and it opens the door to the bigger habit. By just mastering those first 2 minutes, you make it so much more likely you'll actually continue. You're not building the habit of running just yet. You're building the habit of putting your shoes on. This table from the workbook just visualizes the whole idea perfectly. Just look at that very easy column. Put on running shoes. Read 1 page. These are your gateway habits. They are so ridiculously simple that it's almost impossible not to do them. And once that becomes automatic, then you can progress. It's all about building momentum, starting with an action you literally cannot fail at. And this same idea applies to really complex goals too, through something called habit shaping. Let's take becoming a vegan. Instead of this huge, drastic overhaul overnight, you just break it down. You master phase 1, just eat vegetables with each meal, before you even think about moving to phase 2. Each step builds on the last one, making a monumental change actually feel achievable. Okay, so we've made our good habits easy. Now, let's flip the script completely. We're going to apply the inversion of the law. We're going to design our environment to make our bad habits difficult. This is the other half of the equation, and honestly, it's often the more powerful one. This slide lays it out perfectly side by side. On one side, you're paving the smooth, easy path for your good habits. But on the other, you are deliberately creating obstacles for your bad ones. You increase the friction, you add barriers. And instead of automating good decisions, you use something called a commitment device to lock yourself out of the bad ones. So what on earth is a commitment device? It sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's simply a choice that you make right now to control your actions later. You're basically using your present self's good intentions to protect your future self from temptation by making the wrong thing incredibly inconvenient to do. And here are some fantastic practical examples. Paying for a gym membership for the whole year upfront. or unplugging the TV and literally hiding the remote after you use it. The friction to set it all up again is a surprisingly powerful deterrent. And of course, the classic, just leaving your phone in a completely different room when you really need to focus. The really key insight here is that the most effective strategies are often these one-time actions that lock in good behavior for the long run. Setting up an automatic savings deduction is a decision you make once that automates a good habit forever. Buying a really good mattress is a single action that encourages good sleep for years to come. These decisions make good habits the default setting. Okay, so we've covered making good habits easy and bad habits hard. Now let's put it all together into a simple, actionable plan that you can start using, well, right away. It really just boils down to 3 steps. First, redesign your environment. Make those good habits convenient. Second, take your biggest goal and shrink it down into a tiny 2-minute gateway habit. And third, figure out your biggest temptations and start adding friction. Make them harder to do. This quote just captures the whole idea so well. We often think of success as the smooth path forward, but sometimes it's actually about deliberately putting obstacles in the path of our own worst impulses. It's like you're playing a strategic defense for your future self. Ultimately, the biggest takeaway is this: stop trying to overpower your basic human nature with brute force. Instead of relying on your willpower, which we all know is finite, become an architect of your own life. Build systems and environments that work with your natural tendency for ease, guiding you towards better outcomes almost automatically. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What is one tiny barrier you can remove from a good habit this week? And, just as importantly, what is one small barrier you can add to a bad one? The answers to those 2 questions could be the start of a really profound change.